Welcome to Quito! I finally am getting around to making my first video in country. And this is happening at basically exactly the halfway point in my course, my TEFL course. So my course is 1 month long where I'm learning how to be able to teach English, and I am at the halfway point. So I've been in Quito for 2 weeks, and I've got about 2.5 weeks left here in Quito. So I wanted to tell you a bit about my daily life and living here in Quito, and some of the things that I've seen, and some of the things that I've learned about Quito. So with that, this is my room, and I can kind of show you. So I've got my closet to the side. I have these kind of bizarre statues that watch me when I sleep. And then my bed is what I've got this propped up on right now. I don't have a desk. I am staying with a elderly woman. So I had my school arranged to set me up with a host family. So I'm living with a woman named Yolanda, who is 67 years old. So she has this apartment, and there's 2 bedrooms. I have my own bedroom and a bathroom to the side. And then she cooks for me as well, which is really nice. Yolanda's a very sweet woman. She does not speak any English whatsoever, like not even a little bit. So I am really thinking back about 10 years to my my college days of taking Spanish, and I remember a decent amount, so I think I'm able to express myself pretty well in basic and poor grammar. However, I understand about half of what she says, which leads to some very interesting forms of communication. For example, she told me that she was going to take me into the center of the city to see, the downtown Quito within my first weekend. And at least that's what I thought. Turns out she also wanted to take me furniture shopping. So for the first hour of our trip, we were looking at kitchen chairs, and then we went to the center. So that part I had completely missed as part of the communication. So there's been a couple of things like that which have made it a little bit interesting. But overall, it's been really nice, and I really like the apartment here. It is a bit further away. It's about a half-an-hour walk to my school, and then a half an hour further to get into the downtown area of Quito. So I'm kind of a bit more on the fringe. But the good thing is that Uber's here, and Uber's really cheap. So during the day I can walk or take the public transportation, and at night I'll usually take an Uber for safety reasons. Other things, so about Quito, I have a couple observations that I've experienced while living here. So some of the most interesting ones are that Quito uses US currency. However, they are really big into coins here, so you see a ton of Sacagawea coins, and even the 50-cent Kennedy coins, which is something that's kind of rare to find in the States. However, here I would say you get the Sacagawea, like the golden dollar coins, more often than you'll get a dollar bill, and tons of the 50-cent coins. So that's a bit comical to me, because I think in the States when you get some of those coins, like, ooh, 50 cent, that's a special one, but here it's just totally commonplace. Also, in Quito, well, I guess in Latin America in general, this is probably a common thing amongst many of the countries. The plumbing system is really bad, so you're not supposed to throw toilet paper into the toilet, but in a trash can next to it. I keep on forgetting that, but it apparently can cause clogs with the plumbing. So it's definitely something different in habits, that you'll always find this kind of smelly and gross trash can in the bathroom. So that's been a bit difficult getting used to, but I'm getting more conscientious of it now. Also in Quito, the weather is amazing. So It's typically during the day, it can get up into the mid 70s, and in the evening, a little bit cooler, maybe a light jacket, low 60s, something like that. It's beautiful here. Most of the days have been really sunny. There's been a little bit of rain, but overall, it's kind of an internal spring, basically, like late spring, I would say, which is delightful. However, the sun is no joke. Especially right now, they're having extreme UV rays that are happening, so you can get burnt really, really easily. And I'm amazed that I haven't been burnt yet, but that's because I've been putting on sunscreen every single day, and if I'm out in the sun, I apply every half an hour, basically. So, and a couple of my classmates have not done that, and they have been extremely burned, and one girl actually even got sun poisoning. So that is something that's actually really serious here to keep in mind, is a ton of sunscreen, el protector del sol, to put on. The other thing that's kind of unique to Quito is the lingo. They'll say ito on the end of things, which is kind of comical because it's Quito, but they'll say things like, instead of poco, un poquito, or if, and it's kind of an endearing, like little terminology. So maybe instead of comido, it's comido, or is it comedito? I've also been called, was it flaquita, which means like little tiny girl, by some of like the older like storefront women. So that's kind of something language-wise that's a little bit more unique to Quito that I thought is a bit funny. And once I started noticing it, it does happen where ito gets thrown onto the ends of phrases a lot. And then another thing that I think is hilarious, there are these trucks that drive around, which, so they kind of, the best way to describe it is initially you'd think it's like an ice cream truck. Like it's this truck and it's playing this very bizarre children's music almost. And I had to ask my teacher, like, what is this truck that's driving around? And it's actually a propane tank truck, because most houses and even businesses run on propane tanks. And so you'll bring in a tank to hook up to your stove or your water heater. And once that tank runs out, this truck just drives up and down the streets with this kind of crazy children music, and you can go out and buy a propane tank from the truck. So I have a video, because they're all over the place. I mean, you hear these things multiple times a day everywhere. So I kind of have this like song ingrained in my mind now. So I was able to catch a video of one of the trucks driving by on my way to school the other day, which I'll play for you. Next, I want to talk about some of the things that I've done and seen while in Quito here over the last 2 weeks. So this is my third weekend here now. So I've been kind of busy during the weekdays with school, but on the weekends I've been trying to go out and see the city more. When I first got here, I did catch a kind of nasty cold, so I was laying low for the first little bit, but luckily I was able to recover from that after drinking lots of fluids and taking it easy. So now I'm back to full health. And there are, so some of my favorite things that I've seen and done while being here are, let's see, so going into the center of the city. So downtown Quito is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, because the buildings are so historic and well preserved. And it's really this kind of beautiful architecture of colonial architecture that just walking around is really pretty to see. Lots of churches, lots of historic buildings, everything's really colorful. So that's really nice to wander around and experience. I also, close to the downtown area is the Basilica, which I just went to this weekend. The Basilica is huge, and you can take a tour to go through the roof of the Basilica to the steeples, and you get a really great view of the city. Some other things that I've done are going to, of course, the equator, the middle of the world. And that, I'm not gonna lie, is a bit of a tourist trap, but it's still really interesting to, you know, be on the equator per se. So there's two theories here. There is a museum that has the equator line drawn. Some say that that's the exact GPS geographical equator line. I have seen on websites though that that initially was thought to be the equator set up by the French a couple hundred years ago, but since then the equator has either moved or been recalculated with more precise measurements, and it's actually a couple hundred meters away from where the museum and line is kind of painted. However, in the museum, they do these different water filtration experiments to show you just a couple meters away from each other, you know, one on the center of the line and one to the left, one to the right, so northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, to see how water spirals. And apparently it makes a total difference even just a couple meters away. So I'll show you that, and then you can decide for yourself if that was the actual equator line or if it's a hoax and the equator is a couple hundred meters away, which if it is, then I have no idea how to explain the videos, the experiments that they did at the museum itself.
1, 2, 3, go. Watch your lips. The water doesn't spin, force straight down. 1, 2, 3, go. Look at what's happening in Brazil. To the right.
Canadá o los Estados Unidos, el agua va a bajar de exactamente la forma contraria de lo que vimos abajo. Esta vez está bajando de forma contra el reloj o antihoraria. Esto es llamado el efecto Coriolis.
Another thing that was one of my favorite things to do while here is I took a hike to the top of Ruku Pichincha, which is a mountaintop that's actually really close to my host family's house. So you take first the teleférico up, which is this kind of cable car system. And from there, it's about a 5-hour round trip hike to the top of Ruku Pichincha. And I will say, while getting to the top was literally a rock climb, sheer scramble up to the top, which was quite intimidating, the views were spectacular. You basically are literally in the clouds. I mean, I felt like airplane level. The altitude is extremely high. I believe it comes out to 15,400 feet, which is higher than any mountain in the United States or, you know, in Colorado. So it was really quite exhausting to get up there, but the views were spectacular. On one side you could see all of Quito, and on the other side it was just further mountain ranges, and it was really worth the exhausting and strenuous 5 hours. So also have a video of that for you. Okay, and so I think that is actually it for my first video in Quito. I'll probably try to make one more before I leave here to fill you in on the second half of my experiences. And if there's anything that you're particularly curious about, I'll be happy to tell you. I'm sure I will find a couple more interesting things to do over the next few weekends while I'm here. So until next time, ciao!